every single moment of every single day. If you don't want to have sex with an attractive woman, there's something wrong with you. You're not a man. You're not man enough. And then at the same time, our sexuality is vilified.
This is The Deep Dive with Adam Roa.
What it means to be a man in today's day and age. You see, I think one of the preconceived notions is that men don't care. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions that we have around masculinity in general, is that we are not emotional beings. And that's not entirely the fault of whoever's perceiving that. That's also because as men, we're often shown these examples in our media of what it means to be a man, which is to be tough. Don't let them see you cry. Boys don't cry. There's no crying in baseball. Like all of these things where, we have been told that emotions are for women. Being emotional is the sign of a woman, and a masculine man just takes it on the chin. Toughen up, rub some dirt on it. And so not only are we perceived as being that, because that's what everyone's seeing, but we think that that's supposed to be the way it is. I'm supposed to be that tough. I know for myself, I didn't cry for 9 years. I shut myself down because I went through an experience where I was at soccer practice and I got into a fight with a teammate of mine, like an actual fight where, I mean, we're 7, I think, something like that. And so we're trying to like jump kick each other and like kick at each other and like throw water bottles at each other. So it was like one of those, but it was a physical fight. And all of a sudden I hear, Adam. I was like, what? And my dad is yelling at me from the sideline, and he had come to pick me up. And so I lower my head and I grab my water bottle and I walk over, and he gets into the car, and I don't even get in the passenger seat. I crawl into the back seat of the sedan and I lay down and I'm crying. Like I'm bawling. This is the first fight I've ever been in. And my dad starts to back the car out, and then he stops. He stops the car and he turns around and he says to me, if you're going to fight, then fight, but don't cry like a little girl. And then he keeps driving. I didn't cry for 9 years after that. I completely shut down that part of my emotional experience because I just didn't want to disappoint my dad. I also now have this understanding that I also didn't feel safe to show emotion around my family at that stage. And I think so many men have a story like this, whether it's a movie that they saw, whether it's their parental figure or role model that said something like that to them, or whatever it might be, that it is pervasive through society. I literally on Twitter just the other day, and Twitter's a place you can get so many different things, but what I saw was a comment, a tweet from a relatively well-known woman who said, if I'm ever with a man who gets beat up in a fight, I'm dumping him. Because I don't want to be with a weak ass man. This is something that is in the collective ethos, and it is affecting the masculine heart and what it means to be sensitive and what it means to feel, and the confusion that can happen. And this is not, I'm not asking for pity. I'm not asking for anything other than to give you some understanding of the confusion that can happen in a young man to feel all the feelings, because we feel them. That's the thing. We feel them. And yet see all these reflections around us telling us that we shouldn't, or at the very least, we shouldn't show them. And then complicated by that is sexuality. There's the emotional component. And then when you add sexuality and all of those same role models, all of those same movies and movie stars that basically get the girl. Not only do they get the girl, but all the other women that they want to have if they wanted it, right? The idea is that the more women you sleep with, the more masculine you are. You are more of a man when you have sex with more women. And to do that, quite honestly, in my experience and in my opinion, there has to be some level of disconnect from the emotional component to sex. To be deeply emotionally connected to the act of sex, and yet be going out and having sex with a different woman every night is very difficult to do. And so I feel like when it comes to sexuality, we're being told that we should have sex with everyone that we want. Like as a man, we should be ready to go. We should be down DTF, right? Every single moment of every single day. If you don't want to have sex with an attractive woman, there's something wrong with you. You're not a man. You're not man enough. And then at the same time, our sexuality is vilified. When you look at what is happening with the Me Too movement, when you look at what is happening with, by the way, I don't condone in any ways. This is separate from the very obvious misuse of power and the objectification of women and all of these things. However, it does tie together. And when you see the Me Too movement and where that began to even amplify tremendously was this vilification of male sexuality, as if the man's sexual drive and sexual desires are primal, they're bad, essentially. They cause harm. And I can relate to this personally because as someone who was sexually abused by a man when I was 5 years old, I took on a belief system that I didn't even know that I had until later in life. And I started uncovering this, which was that it is unsafe to be the object of a man's sexual desire, one, and that a man's sexual desire causes pain.